Thanks everybody for joining me today. I'm Amanda Johns, and we are going to make some amazing macadamia nut cookies. We are going to put all this together, and then I'm going to show you how we can press it out. You can either dehydrate it or you can refrigerate these cookies. These are nice and simple to make, and you can make beautiful little shapes out of them, and we're going to show you how we're going to do that for Valentine's Day. We're just going to make a little heart shape, but you could literally use any shape and use these for all occasions. Macadamia nuts are so good for good fat, good for the skin. They're really nice and beautiful and white. So with this recipe, it does call for just the macadamia nuts, but if you're somebody who, is on a little budget and the macadamia nuts, you can't find them, you can use cashews. So today I did a little bit of macadamia and cashews in this recipe just to make it nice and smooth, gives it that nice cookie kind of consistency. I soaked a little bit of raisins. So always save your soak water so that you can use it for other recipes, or if you actually need a little bit of water in the blend, you have your soak water. In this recipe, dates are optional, but you also have apple. So apple is going to be the other thing that we use in this recipe, which makes it amazing. You could always add other flavoring to it, like cinnamon and stuff if you really want to, but this is just going to be the nice, simplest recipe with just the nuts and the apples. You are going to need a food processor for this recipe. With the food processor, it gives you a little bit more of that dough kind of cookie consistency versus using a blender. You could use the wide base blender if you have that, like the Vitamix has that wide cup. You can use that if you did not have a food processor. You would just want to be careful so that you don't make it liquid with the apples and the raisins. So I'm going to go ahead and start. The first thing that I'm going to do is throw in some of the nuts, or the dates, the dates and the raisins, just to let them go ahead and spin. You can soak your dates overnight is best, but if you just soak them for about 45 minutes before you do the recipe, just get them nice and soft so that when you throw them into the food processor, they process really nice without water. Because you're not wanting the recipe to be really wet, you're wanting it to be like a dough kind of consistency. So we're just going to get that little seed out of the middle. It's about 4 dates. Like I said, depending on your sweetness, you can always add. You're going to add a little bit of salt, which will always bring up the sweet in a recipe as well. So let's throw these little dates in. I'm going to take some of it's a half a cup. So I soaked them already, but I'm just going to try to pull some of them out, and then we, can use that date water or soak water if we need to. All right. All right, so I'm going to blend those just for a second. Let's get them down off the side just a little bit, because I want them to be good and blended. If you didn't soak them for a long time, you may just want to blend them a little bit longer if you didn't get them soaked overnight. Blend. It already smells awesome. Those raisins just have that good smell with the dates. It's nice and sweet for our little cookies. All right, so I'm going to throw in our little pinch of salt. Doesn't have to be much to kind of bring the sweet up. You just kind of want to give it a little bit, little tiny bit. It's 1/2 cup of apples. So I would just cut it and then cube it. I'm using red apples. You could literally use any kind of apple that you want. You just kind of cube it, and that'll give you like a half cup. You could always use a little bit more if you're a big apple fan. So we're going to use a big heaping pile of the apple just because I really love it. Then we're going to throw in the nuts. So this is cashew and macadamia. I'm gonna get some of the date stuff off the side again, and raisins. But it's already making a really pretty, nice cookie kind of dough. Once you get those nuts blended a little bit more, it'll be nice with the apple. You could also make these into nice little bars too and dehydrate them. But we're gonna make beautiful little heart cookies. I'm gonna spin one more time and then see what that looks like. And I think we'll be right at the consistency that we need. I think we are good. All right, so now we're back after we have the cookies nice and blended. And we are going to put them on a dehydrator sheet and dehydrate them for a couple of hours. If you don't have a dehydrator, you can place them in the refrigerator or put them in the freezer. That way they kind of harden up just a little bit before you actually serve them. Just let them sit out for a little while. But today we're going to actually just throw them in the dehydrator and make a nice little cookie out of them. Spread them out on the sheet and the drying sheet. And then underneath I'll have that screen. So I'm taking a tiny bit of coconut oil and putting it on my hands. The recipe does not call for coconut oil, but that will help with the spreading of the cookie dough. So just a nice little bit, kind of warm your hands up. The next thing that I'm going to do is just take that screen sheet and put it on top of that so that later when I want to remove the drying sheet, I can just dry them a little bit longer if I need to, depending on the consistency that you're wanting. If you're wanting them to be crunchy, you're just going to leave them on the dehydrator for longer than the 4 hours. If you're just wanting them to be soft, again, you could always use the refrigerator if you wanted to do it that way. Now we're ready to put them on the dehydrator. And this is kind of what they look like as little hearts. So if you want to dry them for over the 4 hours to make them nice and crunchy, you can do that as well. Or if you want them to be nice and soft, you just do that 4 hours or less and just kind of check them, and then you will put them on the screen again if you're wanting them crunchy and soft. Now that we have made our macadamia heart cookies and we shaped them into these beautiful, cute little hearts, they turned out so amazing. So I dehydrated them for about 4 hours, and then after that 4 hours, I flipped them over. I just took a little spatula, kind of flipped them over, just to kind of get them, on both sides instead of me taking them off and putting them on the screen. You can do that if you want to. I was actually going to pop them back on the dehydrator so they're nice and warm before I serve them today. But you could do that if you want to just put them on the screen for that last about 30 minutes on the screen after you do the 4 hours. I did it at about 105, so somewhere in between that 105, 110. You just want to keep an eye on them unless you want them very crunchy. If you want them really crunchy, you just let them roll for longer than the 4 hours. I'm kind of wanting them a little bit pliable. So they turned out amazing and they're so good. Super cute. You can make them into any shape and roll them into balls. You could also make them into little, like little bars that you could take with you to work for a snack as well. So they turned out amazingly beautiful. And so this is our macadamia hearts. If you do not have a dehydrator, you could always put them in the refrigerator or pop them into the toaster oven as well.